Hello and welcome to Moldav. This is Dresden's Tale, episode 16. I'm your host, Lewis Nichols. This is the show where we follow Dresden Fane, a dwarven warlock, adventuring early in his career, seeking fame and glory. In past episodes, Dresden has adventured to the desert plain of Odessa. He fought some mongrel men. He chased around some heretics. And he has come back to his home plain of Moldav, his home city of Parnsilia. And that is where we're going to find him today. Before I dive into that, I'm going to do a little advertising for the channel. Dresden's Tale is not the only series I have here. There are two companion series, Nuts and Bolts and How We Got Here. This, Dresden's Tale, is primarily the meat of the story, the character building, the interactions, the plot. Nuts and Bolts, this is a story based on a tabletop role-playing game, something of me and my friends invented way back when. And so it is a very rules-based world. And Nuts and Bolts is where we get into things like the physics and the history, the way the magic works, the way the world interacts, rather than things directly related to Dresden and his adventures in it. We also have a second series called How We Got Here. That series is more of a about the author kind of thing. Things more personal, things about me rather than the story itself. Now, both of these are going to be quite a bit more interactive. Dresden's Tale, I am recording way in advance. I intend to have all of the episodes done before I ever even launch the channel. So if you post a comment, you're not going to hear a response in Dresden's Tale. However, I will try to respond to your comments on the station there. Where I can interact is Nuts and Bolts and How We Got Here. Nuts and Bolts, I've only recorded 4 episodes. And that's all I intend to record until I hear some feedback, so I can be responsive there. Same thing with How We Got Here. I actually haven't recorded any episodes, although I intend to have at least a couple of done before I launch the channel. But I can definitely, do things like answer questions and give shout outs to my supporters or just my fans. So there you have it for our extended introduction this week. We're going to dive into the story now. This is chapter 15. It is the 15th day of Jute, and it is, of course, 2051 years after the fall. So we find Dresden tired and grumpy, surprise, surprise, covered in dark dust. His sweat is making it look like he's got black tears running down his cheeks. He has been on transport duty, the thing he fears the most, but he's working for his master, Nanoc, High Priest of Lorne, and he can't keep a secret from Nanoc, so turns out some of the clan administrators forgot to shift some labor up to the coal mines, and Nanoc volunteered Dresden to help out. So every day he's been pocket spacing to the mines, doing a little work, and then pocket spacing back a load of coal. Now, of course, he can't move as much as a wagon, but moving a substantial amount every day quickly, not having to make that long trek that on a road that's already crowded. It's slowly catching things up. Now, he's tried to be stoic about it, tried to live by the model of the veteran warriors that he was spending time with at the end of his expedition to Odessa. He tells the wind, "Mine is but to serve," and then grumbles to himself, "I wish I was back on Odessa." Now, the way it was supposed to work is what I mentioned earlier. He pocket spaces up, grabs a load, pocket spaces back down into the city, drops it off. But when he botches a casting, it throws off his schedule and sticks him there overnight. So he has to work even harder. He certainly doesn't know who came up with the whole load of crap about dwarves loving caves. He wasn't as claustrophobic as an Aquirida, but he'd certainly rather be up in the fresh air. Dresden was pretty much worked up into a panic again, thinking that Nanoc, if at the very best, would send him off for even more training so he could make more regular trips. Or maybe that he'd just leave him on a permanent transport duty, popping back and forth every single day, working in the mines. Fane? He nearly jumped out of his skin. It was Druvmoiden. "I know it's some cultural thing with you or some shit, but take a bath. Nanoc wants to see you. Now." Dresden let his irritation take over. He stripped down right in the middle of the yard. This was it, he thought. The sound of his master's voice ran through his head. "You've done a great job the last few months. Now, it's off to Pocket Space University for you." They'd train him up and he'd spend the next 50 years bringing coal back to the city. After a while, they'd send him to live in the mines permanently so he could spend extra time in the dark city hole. Dresden pulled a chain under the wash, releasing 100 gallons of water to dump down on him. The station was primarily used for horses and lizard steeds, but he'd seen others use it to cool off on hot days. It was hot enough. "Good. Now get dressed and get your ass to the manor house," the head guard hollered. "And when you're done, take that bucket and fill the reservoir right back up again." Changing clothes wasn't an option. Dresden only had the one set, so he beat out as much dust as he could before putting it back on. With some forethought, he'd have done that before the shower. By the time he was dressed, he was covered in drying smudges of coal dust all over again. Dresden had been to the manor house before, but rarely got a chance to speak to the high priest. He thought it was slightly exhilarating, but at the same time terrifying. Could anyone that close to the gods really be completely mortal? He wondered about the high priest. He walked into the main house through a back door and was ushered into a small office by a juvenile human. The room was cluttered with stacks and sheets of paper and rolled maps inked onto deer hides. Somewhere, underneath the large stack, Dresden supposed a desk lay hidden. The stink of paper ink and fish oil permeated the room. Lanterns were the only source of light in the dank space. Nanoc was not there. Instead, a human executor sat with his nose in a file. In front of him was a woman, yet another human. She stood fidgeting. He knew her by name. It was Shara, and she was part of the kitchen staff, but that's all he did know. She looked even more nervous than the dwarf felt. Dresden started to duck out to give them privacy, but another housemate was already behind him. The Saurian was a simple gardener, as far as the dwarf knew, but he was big enough to block the way. Yes, you can object, Shara," the man behind the desk spoke. "If you're sure you really want to. You know your choices. 1, marry John or somebody else, give us a few kids." He counted on his fingers. 2, military service. So far, that doesn't seem to interest you. Last, you can leave the house. She acted like she wanted to cry. Dresden didn't have much sympathy for Proles. If she was turning down military service, she certainly was one. He thought to himself that she might as well just have a few kids. He spoke up. John's an ass, but I know a guy named Hongus that's not such a bad guy. The executor looked at him like he'd ignited a pile of papers by sneezing fire. You'll get your turn. He had to look at a file to get the dwarf's name. Dresden. I'll meet with this John. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. With that, the woman left the room with a great deal of shuffling about to clear space. Now, Dresden, why are you here? I thought I was supposed to see Nanoc. Right, and when does he have time for men-at-arms? The human was quickly getting under Dresden's skin. The sword next to his desk drew a smirk, no doubt to make people think he was a warrior as well as an executor. Well, good news for you. Report to your militia barracks in the morning at dawn. Your captain wants you back for some reason. I'll tell him you need training in holding your tongue. That girl might have made more than a prole someday, and your interference doesn't help. And for the sake of sanity, please take a bath, he called out to Dresden as he headed out the hall. Dresden didn't hear. A late season departure had to be a good thing. Only a real crisis could cause the militia to rally so late in the season. Well, how about that? The adventure isn't over yet. But chapter 15 is. So, everybody, your job is to leave a comment down below. What do you think Dresden's getting himself into? We'll know in a few days. Look for chapter 16 to be released. Not too far off. Possibly, I'm even on a schedule now. It's as much a mystery to me as it is to you. Do all the stuff. Everything really does help me. The almighty algorithm that determines who all sees my videos is very much dependent upon your comments and any hubbub or sharing or such things that you can drum up. You can also visit me on Patreon and help me out directly. You can become a member of the channel here on YouTube. You can go to Amazon for Kindle readers and download this or other stories I have up there. And for station updates and other news, you can check out my Twitter feed at Lewis Nichols. Of course, you don't have to do any of that. If you just want to listen, that is awesome. I appreciate every one of you very, very much. And I hope you all have a absolutely wonderful day.